Hi, Zandy. After a keynote at a client recently, someone from the audience mentioned to me that for a selected group of employees, their company provides sleep pods for naps during the workday. Now, if you had to guess, what type of company do you think that might be? What industry? Well, if I didn't know better, I'd say, well, a high tech company or a startup or maybe a place that tends to have foosball tables and free food, maybe a Facebook or a Google or someplace like that. As it turns out, it was a road construction company. And the selected group of employees, they're estimators. The idea is that this group of people absolutely must be at the top of their game, a game where the stakes are in the millions of dollars and oversights can cause the company to lose piles of money. What that company recognizes is what a lot of us leaders don't fully appreciate. A workforce that is well rested performs better, makes less mistakes, tends to have better mental health, so they're less anxious, less defensive, takes less sick time. Yet we ironically, at least at times, celebrate people who, for example, pull all nighters. You send an email at 2 a.m.? Wow, you're committed. Really? I mean, I'm convinced that a healthier understanding of sleep would lead to a healthier team, a higher performing team, which is why we're joined today by Dr. Bijoy John. Dr. John is author of a new book entitled Nobody's Sleeping: 7 Proven Sleep Strategies for Better Health and Happiness. I've been asking friends and colleagues about what they would like to know from a sleep expert, and that's what you're going to hear in today's episode. You'll learn more about the consequences of poor sleep and how Dr. John himself struggled in this area. You'll learn more about what doesn't tend to work and what does. For example, should we be napping or not? And if we do, what should we keep in mind? And what about fixed sleep schedules? A lot of people tell me that sounds like a great idea, but it's not practical. So you'll hear how Dr. John talks about that with his patients. And what if the problem isn't getting to sleep? It's about waking up in the middle of the night and struggling to get back to sleep. We'll talk about all that and so much more. I can't wait to share this discussion with you. A quick note, in addition to the project management workshops we deliver at organizations around the world, we have a keynote entitled Help for the Crazy Busy. And one of the topics we cover has to do with sleep. If you have an upcoming company or association meeting and would like to empower your participants in this area, I'd love to explore how we can help. Check out the show notes for more information. Thanks. Let's jump into today's discussion with Dr. John about his new book, Nobody's Sleeping. Dr. John, thank you for joining us on the People and Projects podcast.
Thanks, Andy. You covered a lot of stuff over there. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Yeah, my favorite topic right now is, naps. I've been covering that a lot. So, naps are very important. That like those workers you said, they figured it out. So few people have this knowledge. For example, look at my team, the Titans. They get stuck in the noon slot and we get sleepy in the third quarter. And I wish they're hearing and knowing, paying attention. And the biggest differential is in the third quarter because you're sleepy around 2:30 in the afternoon. Look why the Lions lost. The Niners were awake while it was 10 p.m. I hope the coach,
Well,
he
well,
he
people
was.
aren't. If people don't know the National Football League, they don't know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about, and if
Yes,
those people would read your book, they know when they should drink caffeine. You even give it in the
yes,
book. Drink it
yes,
at this point. And
yes.
I think this whole idea of I think a lot of us think of, well, the consequence of poor sleep is tiredness. Right? I think that seems pretty obvious. But your book opens with a foreword written by a cardiologist. So,
Yes.
what are some of the other areas that sleep issues impact beyond, let's say, NFL performance and how awake we feel during the day?
Yes. So sleep affects all parts of the body. The tiredness is the end of in the extreme form of sleep problems. See, for example, the heart. At nighttime we are supposed to rest. We are hustling today. Our heart, is goes high, the blood pressure goes high, but at night the body kind of calms down. But if you have a sleep disorder, the most common one is sleep apnea or insomnia. The body does not have the chance to equilibrate. It doesn't get the chance. It's going 24/7. So the number one treatable cause for conditions like irregular heart rate, blood pressure is a sleep disorder, especially sleep apnea. So it affects all parts of the body. You're in a mental fog, your heart's affected, you gain weight. We all focus on, diet and exercise, but sleep is the foundation on those two things are built. It affects your sexual function. It helps to restore the muscular function, gets it to rest well. So it affects all parts of the body. So this is a superpower, and I want everyone to discover that is within ourselves. The best part, it is free.
Yeah. 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 And you can't help but even just listen to you and feel your passion for it and your enthusiasm. And it comes out in your book. And do you think it's fair to say that most cardiologists, and you can replace that with any specialty, they're not necessarily thinking about sleep disorders when they're diagnosing a person? I mean, do you think that's fair to say?
That's correct. Most of them are not, but they are aware now. When you
Yeah.
put cardiovascular, including blood pressure, which is a huge thing, they see cardiologists, and heart rate, irregular heart rate, to keep the heart under check. So what happens? This is a common analogy I give, Andy. When you're climbing stairs, what happens to us? You're breathing fast, and your heart rate goes high. Imagine if the breath is not going, the heart has to beat faster. So when you have sleep apnea, there's no breath. Guess what? There's a flight or fight, and the heart just goes into rapid. It has to save you. The body will always try to save you unless it gives up. One day we do die in our sleep, and I can go into that why we do that. But that's puts a lot of stress on the heart. So that's why the cardiologists are always, and the more cardiologists are aware now, because for them to have a permanent solution for their problem, they have to check into the sleep problems, because without breathing, your heart's not going to be fixed.
Yeah, I love that, actually, that analogy. To me, I thought what I thought was interesting is this isn't just theory or business for you. You're both a practitioner and a patient. And so, how did you discover your own sleep apnea? And let's say someone listening to us says, "Well, I don't know, maybe I have it." Just a couple ideas. I mean, they should get your book to even get more on this, and for that matter, visit a doctor. But what are some ways they might identify that they have an issue?
So what happens in around 45, 50 years, our testosterone drops. So what happens? Testosterone is, the strong, keeps everything, the tonicity is high. But when you lose testosterone, what happens? Your everything becomes flaccid. Not only your low libido, your tongue falls back too. So it narrows the airway, and you snore more. Same thing in women. And women also, when they reach menopause, when they lose estrogen, they have more tendency to have sleep apnea. But men are more, the incidence of sleep apnea is more reported in men, because we snore more, because our larynx is bigger. Imagine, like a trumpet, the base of the trumpet is the larynx, so it gets amplified. Women's larynx is smaller, so they snore subtly, so they get wait a long time to get help. So if you're snoring, and if you're tired in the morning when you wake up, and then of course your spouse saying, "Hey," the famous elbow sign, especially when you're back, and she says you stop breathing. That's how the cardinal signs: snoring, being tired, and stopping breathing. You have it. I had the two things: I was snoring and I was tired in the mornings. So I did a home sleep test myself, and I started treating, and I took care of it. And I also suffered from insomnia, all through my life in different portions. So I overcame all that. And of course, I was a shift worker. I worked in the ICU for 25 years. I never slept, so I know how it is not to sleep well, the mental fog and the tiredness, the irritability. So I know all about. I know how you feel. So that's why I became passionate to, and I also overcame all that. So I thought, let me give this message to everyone willing to learn.
Yeah, I loved it in the book when you said if somebody says you have no idea, or do you have any idea what it's like to wake up this tired? You're like, yeah, well, actually, I do. you
Yes,
know? Yeah, yeah,
my background in pulmonary and critical care also helps. As a child, I had shortness of breath playing. I didn't know what it was. And I became a lung doctor to find out myself that I had exercise induced asthma. So when you have the problem, you become better, so you're able to empathize better, and you become a better human being. So I always say, you never know what the other person is, going through, unless you are in their shoes. So this one I know, the insomnia, the sleep apnea, and the shortness of breath. I've experienced it all.
yeah. I'm curious, and we'll talk about how to help, but I'm trying
Yes.
to think of what we do that doesn't help. You make it clear in the book that counting to 10 or counting sheep Counting sheep doesn't help. You hear people talk about melatonin or
Yes.
marijuana or
Yes.
alcohol. Like, what are some things that truth is, although sometimes people use it, it probably doesn't help that much.
There are people, insomnia and sleep apnea are the most common search topics on Google. I just did the research. Some of the things people are saying, hold your some kind of bone on your wrist to go to sleep. It hurts. I tried that. It only hurts. The counting sheep, increasing the cognitive activity. We have our own melatonin. The moment you take melatonin, our body shuts off. Same thing with alcohol. Alcohol does not put you to sleep. I mean, you can drink as a habit, but what happens with people when they try to use to go to sleep, it only anesthetizes the brain, and then it also acts as a diuretic, so you wake up later in the night. And also, alcohol converts to acetaldehyde, which you accumulate, which is an irritant, wakes you up. So the classic definition of a hangover is you're dehydrated, you're in a bad mood, you didn't sleep well, and then the acetaldehyde causes you to be much more in a toxic mood. So here we have, no to melatonin, no to alcohol for sleeping, and then holding your hand. And then one other thing people do is, let's say somebody goes to bed at 10 and they cannot fall asleep till midnight. Guess what they're doing? They go to bed by 9. Now they're suffering for 3 hours. Becomes a torture chamber. I tell people to practice sleep restriction, which is going to bed closer to the time you fell asleep. So there's so much. People, I was at a conference the other day. I just asked a few questions on sleep. People were answering all those questions. Then I asked them about the digestive system. There was complete silence. People are so infatuated with sleep. They want to know about sleep, but the bad part is there's no good information anywhere. People are getting what they can get.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said it that way. I think that's a good reminder for us. And you and I talked about nap just recently, but in fact, I think you said in the book that if your family doesn't know where you're at 2:30 on a Sunday afternoon, they know where you're at. You're taking a nap, so you're not anti-nap. That wasn't a message of the book at all. But I didn't really get this until I got married. My wife and I just celebrated 36 years, and she's masterful at the power naps, and I'm kind of
Mhm.
able to do it now. In fact, I just took a half-hour nap right before
Yes.
this discussion. I
Yes.
feel more rested
Mhm.
after 20 to 30 minutes than I do like an hour. And you
Mhm.
kind of talk about this. So how do you advise your patients regarding naps?
So you discovered the secret. Naps are so good. You follow the circadian rhythm. Our body goes tired around 2:30. That's a perfect time to take a nap. Or sometimes if you have a time for like a 15 minute. So the key here, Andy, is the nap should be only for 30, maximum 40 minutes, because you're following the biorhythm. This is a biohack. Your brain volume actually increases with naps. But if you are sleeping or napping for 2 hours, 3 hours, that means you are operating out of a sleep debt. So your body has some other problem. There's the medical problem or a sleep problem. So this is a caveat. Small naps, power naps, I always encourage. But if it goes to 2, 3 hours, then you have a sleep problem or a medical problem. Your body's trying to tell you something.
Yeah, I like that. You know, I think um, one of the challenging parts of coming up with a sleep plan, because that seems to be common advice. Go to bed at this time, wake up at this time, is and I think you say even on weekends, right? But let's start with why it's so important, and then I'd love to hear what you say when somebody goes, "But Doctor John, like what if I'm at a concert and I'm going to stay up late, or what if I have an early morning flight?" I think it comes off as neat idea, not practical. So I'm just curious of why is it important, and how do you personally even try to deal with it? Because your schedule varies sometimes too.
Yes. So, in an overall scheme, if you have good practices, 1 or 2 days here and there, it's okay. It's like when you're on dieting, hey, little ice cream here and there, but having 3 meals a day and having ice cream and all kind of stuff, it's no good. Same thing. If you miss sleep here and there because of, sometimes I hang with my kids. We go to downtown and hang, I can hang with them pretty good. So because I've already prepared myself, but I don't do that every night. So, but what happened? Society as a whole is operating on sleep debt, and the main culprit there is your phone. I'm opening a can of worms because we're going to do whatever it takes to be on our phones, including myself. We dedicate 2, 3, 4. Kids are spending 6 hours. Where does that extra time come from? compromising on your sleep. So it's a major problem. And in the hustle culture, we hustle, hustle, and we want sleep to be like that. Sleep is an ancient art. You can't hustle your way. So a schedule is very important. And if you go off track once in a while, that's perfectly okay. But make sure 80, 90% of the time you are on schedule.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. And there's something about, well, to me, it seems like some of the value might be part of having just a shutdown routine. I know that 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, or I know that that time is coming. And so it builds it up. And I think from a shutdown routine, I feel like I even a greater appreciation from reading your book about the importance, like a dimmer switch. I think you use the term. It
Yes.
gradually eases you into it. So I'm going to tell you what my shutdown routine is. I'm interested in
Yes.
what yours is. So I try to keep the lights low. I try to minimize emotional upset by not watching the news, or if my wife and I have to have a difficult discussion, we try to have it earlier in the night, not like
Mhm.
right then. I do take a magnesium supplement before going to bed. I do some stretching, very light, not like extensive. It's not,
Mhm.
but it just to me, it's just relaxing. I'll pray with my wife. We'll have a kiss, and then try to doze off. So that's kind of what mine looks like. Any comments on what you like, or maybe questions? And then I'm curious.
So
I'm curious about yours then.
So you're easing into bed, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's one of my strategies that I mentioned also in my book. We'll also discuss here. It's a worrying time. We're born into this world. We're going to worry. So I dedicate worrying time between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. I'm done. Even yesterday, I found something I'm doing. Not podcast, the audiobook. I found some mistakes, but I don't go past that, right? And I'm off my phone by 9, and I'm preparing to go to bed by 10. So it's like a 7 course meal. And that's the analogy I give people. It's like, you have to have the music, you have to have the candlelight, the low light. It's okay to have a little bit of wine. And have the salad. It has to be. So what I'm saying is not a heavy meal prior to going to bed.
Mhm.
So you do all these things slowly, and then of course, great reading your Bible, praying, and then ease into bed and keep your phone away from you because it doesn't distract. So you're calming your mind, you're calming your body, and then getting into bed. So this is the only easy, practical way to go to sleep.
Where does your phone go at night, by the way? And how do you handle your morning alarm? Because I'm a little concerned if I put it in another room, maybe I don't hear the alarm. So what do you do?
Great. So do you know that what's the sign of phone addiction? What's the telltale sign?
No, I don't.
If you wake up and the first thing you pick up is your phone, that's the sign of cell
Mm,
phone addiction. We are all addicted to it
yeah.
because it is affected us in a different level. So I keep my phone in my bathroom, which is 6, 7 feet away from me. So I
Mhm.
set my alarm for whatever desired time. So I keep it on the maximum every night in the morning. So literally, I'm waking up. There's no chance to snooze because I am up. And
Yeah.
then it does two things to me. One, I'm not exposed to the dings and the notifications. It's not close to me because anything you can and it triggers. Number two, we all wake up in the middle of the night for many reasons to use the restroom. Plus, the sleep cycle is complicated. And if you look at my book, all the diagrams, you go in
Right.
and out, and you're likely to wake up and then you look at the time, you're done. Wow, it's 3 o'clock. Wow, it's only 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. You worry. So the cognition activity increases. So for that reason, I keep it close to me but far away from me, so I'm done. I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. And um, when my wife and I are talking about doing this, so we still currently use it at a bedstand, but we've been talking about moving it into the bathroom, same sort of idea. But then we thought, well, do we need an alarm clock? And you actually say, for the reason you just mentioned, you don't even have a clock in there
There's no
because
clock in my bedroom.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I remember seeing in a magazine years ago where you could have a clock that beams the time up on your
Oh,
ceiling.
the
That's like a
wrong thing
terrible
to do.
idea,
That's a
right?
bad idea. Looks
Yeah,
fancy. There are so many clocks, there's so many gadgets people are trying to sell with cancellation. That's the in my routine, the sleep now acronym I call.
hmm,
You have to win by losing, not complicating. I remove all the whales. People come up to me with 7 rituals. I'm removing one after the other, peeling through and just keeping it simple.
yeah. Yeah. Do you use any sound like a fan, or do you personally use a fan or any sound
Yes,
noise?
I always slept with a fan on,
Yeah,
so that's my background noise. And research shows that having a noise cancellation machine, there's a noise machine, it's a great idea because that's, you're always used to, even as a baby in the womb, you always have the sound of the heartbeat of the mother. So that's always very soothing, some kind of sound.
yeah,
But in today's world, what people are doing is they're going to bed with all this music, but then you're tethered to the device, right?
right, right.
And then the device is next to you. I'm a big fan of meditation music, whatever soothes you, but don't take it. So I tell people entering the bedroom is like the TSA screener. Cell phone, beep, worries, beep, tight clothing, tight jewelry, and all kind of rituals, beep. You have to leave it all. Bedroom is only for, sex and sleeping, not for
Right,
snoring or worrying.
right. I like that TSA analogy. I missed that. If it's in the book, I missed that. That's a good one. I like that. Yeah. Many people tell me, I mentioned this in the intro, that it's not just getting to sleep, that maybe they get to sleep okay. It's when they wake up in the middle of the night, they have trouble getting back to sleep. One person told me, just actually even today, once I wake up, it's done. And so you have some content in the book about this, but how do you advise patients in these situations?
So that's called sleep maintenance insomnia. So if you're waking, like 3 o'clock or something, try to go to bed a little bit later if that helps. But then if you wake up at 2 and cannot go back to sleep, you have to leave the bedroom. It happens to me at least once or twice a year. So I wake up. What do I do? I said, what do I tell my patients? So I leave the room, go watch TV. I don't get on my phone. See, 20 years ago, I used to tell people, don't watch the TV. But now I tell people it's okay to watch TV, but don't get on the phone. Phone is much more, a lot of problems comes with the phone, the messages, people asking questions, and so I just watch my favorite recorded show, and then I attempt going back to bed. Remember, like, you don't sit in a dining table to get hungry, right? You only are there when you're hungry. Same thing, you don't lay in your bed trying to go to sleep, right? This is a huge point. Just leave and come back, and then eventually you will come, you go to sleep. But there's also new information. Even if you're struggling a little bit, the twilight, a little bit sleep is better. People are sleeping, they don't, everybody wants the stage 3 non-REM sleep, but you get like 1 or 2 stages, say it's okay. But if you're just conscious, so I wake up too to use the restroom. We all have a little bit of prostate enlargement at this age, so I keep my sleep shape. So I just don't look around. I call it the sleep bubble. I don't want to come out of the bubble and look at the time, so I just keep it. Even last night I did that. I just went back to bed. I didn't
Yeah,
get out of it.
yeah,
The chances are looking at the clock or the phone, you're done. You're coming out of your bubble and you're done.
yeah.
So don't do that.
I don't remember exactly how you called it, but it was like protect that twilight, or something like that. Like,
Sleep shape.
yeah, yeah. And I find that if I have to get up to use the restroom, for example, it might be like, what was I dreaming about? Okay, I want to remember that when I come back.
Yeah.
It's trying to protect that. Yeah.
Keep the
And,
shape.
yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah. This year, each year I try something a little bit different. This year I'm trying yoga for stretching, and I have
Yes.
found that savasana pose and some
Yes.
strategic breathing is
Yes.
just it's not only effective at yoga. I find that when I lay in bed, I
Yes.
just kind of just on my back and kind of breathe very, like, 4-7-8 is what I've been finding is kind of a helpful breathing
Yeah.
pattern.
And
But
whale.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you mentioned in chapter 13 some of that, but you also mentioned something that I would love for you to introduce to people: vivid imagination.
Yes.
If you wouldn't mind describing that and how that helps you get to sleep, I'd appreciate
That's my own technique. The common vivid imagination is there for as a term, but I actually trademarked it for sleep. If you see, there's an R on the
that.
book
I
because
saw that.
I've been using it for 25 years myself.
Yeah, yeah.
So when I lay in bed, see what we do commonly, we take the problems to the bed.
Mhm.
We think about the bills, problems, all kind of stuff. But I think you have to be the abstract. The sleep is spiritual and dreams are spiritual, so to enter that world, you have to let go. And I start thinking of the last movie I saw. I become the director of the show, and I think of something. Actually, I drifted off. I did that last night. I drifted. I started watching some basketball game, and I thought I'll take that shot, and then I went to sleep. I don't remember anything after
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So that's
yeah.
the vivid imagination. It's the abstract. Don't take your worries and everything into bed. So that's a technique. In my acronym, power off your mind. That's what I tell people to do.
I just thought it was kind of brilliant because I didn't have a word for it, and that's why vocabulary matters. In which I'm
Yes.
glad you actually marked the word because um, sometimes I'll find I'm just going to tell myself a story, or
Mhm.
I'm not sure I'm completely happy with falling asleep while praying, but means I'm maybe kind of bored with it. But my point is that if we tell ourselves this story, all of a sudden it leads to a dream state. So I just thought that was kind of clever. And this is, I mean, you talk about so many things like a sleep journal and assessment. It's on your website, sleepfixacademy.com. Would you tell us more about what people can find there?
Yes, I have a sleep assessment that tells you where you are. I have some, I'm mostly a podcast guest. I have a few, podcasts that I did, and some of them are there. And then I have some of the appearance on TV and the seven strategies, and also have a Sleep Now course, the seven proven strategies. As a course, as you can self-directed course, is an interactive course. You can take it within the website. So a lot of help, some blogs are there. Just come there, check it out. That'll change your life. And also, if you want a signed copy of my book, I can send it to you from my website.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Uh,
those are some of the things.
yeah, I looked at the site. I thought it was very easy, very accessible, and I don't know there's so many things, Dr. John, I'd love to talk with you about. But let's end with this one because we have a lot of parents who listen to the podcast, and what would be helpful for parents to know about how to help their kids develop healthy sleep hygiene? Because I don't think we're getting into this in school. So how can we maybe as parents try to do
So I have a chapter for small children and teenagers. So they're a little separate. The small children problems are a little bit easy. I call it a 50-50 problem, like what I was suffering from. It's partially the parent's problem and also the child. The child will find a lenient parent in anything else. Even my grown kids try to find the lenient parent. And so, there's this sleep onset association disorder and limit setting disorder. In sleep onset association, the child associates something with sleep. If you make so many things complicated like what my son did, then it's complicated. Associate with a simple story, that's it. uh, and then it limits. The child sets several limits: do this, do that, many different things. Make it simple, and then you can reward them. That's the way to. So sleeping problem in small children is 50-50. Be very careful. The parent is half the time to blame. But then when you come to teenagers, it's a little bit of a complicated issue because your clock is moving forward. This is called behaviorally induced, sleep behavior, where you sleep later and the hormones push the clock later. And kids like to stay up late. They hang out with their friends and be on the phone, and they go to bed late, and the hormones are kicking. And then what happens? Friday, Saturday they manage, but Monday morning or Sunday they do the same thing. But Monday morning you have to go to school. So be careful. Have like 11:30 curfew, so that at least they are in bed by 11:30. So at least they have 7 hours instead of the recommended 8.5 hours. Much more important point right here is sleep. Children till they are at home or before they go to college needs to sleep, because if you our lives were perfect in teenage years, because life happens to all of us. Job, children, family, career. But till 20 or 18, you should sleep well. So if a child is not sleeping, that's a cry for help. This is very clear cut. If any of you children, grandchildren are suffering from sleep disorder, make sure you pull the child back. Is it academic, or is it bullying, or is any other reason or athletic that's preventing the child from sleeping? I think it's not worth it. You have to pull back the child and address the problem, the what is underlying. Sleep problems, I say, are the tip of the iceberg of a lot of other medical problems, psychological problem, or sleep disorders. That is the tip of the iceberg. It's a god-given talent that we have. So if you're not doing well, there's something else wrong.
Yeah, that's wise advice.
Mhm.
We one of our sons, they have a child who's not quite a year old, and about maybe 4 months ago, they started sleep training. I never even
It's-
heard of this idea,
yeah,
but it is incredible because I always thought it was either always pick up the child right away or never pick up the child. It's like to the ends of the
yeah.
extreme. And this sleep training is, to me, is just incredible. I wish I would have known about it when we did it. The child is learning how to kind of, there's a routine, there's a shutdown process, there's a
Hmm.
self-soothing, but it's very loving too, and
Hmm.
so I don't know if that's relatively new in practice, or maybe it's been around for a long time, but I found it super helpful.
No, it's always been there. It was intuitive, but now we get confused messages, and so we had to retrain ourselves how to do it. By 6 months, your child should sleep better. I mean, throughout the night, maybe one feeding. So, the child will cry because that's the child's love language. So when he gets a need met, so the funniest story I tell people is when we had our child on the first night, we heard all the story. They had to self soothe on the first night. We let our child cry because and I still remember my son was so sore, because he had cried the whole night. We didn't go and pick up the child, and then the grandparents like, what did you all do? That's not the way, not on your first night of the bringing the baby back. So that's we don't want to be going to the extreme, but there's a way to do that. So I think people have forgotten it, and now they're getting it back.
Yeah, that's a really good. That's really good advice, and I think I think there's something to be said for modeling good sleep hygiene ourselves, telling our kids like, hey, it's important that mom and I go to bed tonight to get a good night's sleep, and we're going to take a nap just to refuel, and just I don't know, maybe just showing that, because I think there's an age in which, as a kid, I don't want to take a nap, right? And then you're old, you're like, I need to take a nap. Like
Yes.
we get varying views of that, but
Yeah,
modeling.
children are the only specimens I tell they become hyper when you are sleepy. I remember taking my daughter when you're hyper, or, eating all the candy, running around birthday, like 9 o'clock. I just held her. Within like 3 minutes, she went to sleep. So children are become hyperactive, and also I say that in my book. One of the diagnosis of a third of the kids who have ADHD problems also have sleep problems. Because they're not sleeping well, they're acting out. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I know, at least on the anxiety chapter, how it actually is a downward cycle then, right?
Yes,
So
it's a cycle. I have the picture.
right,
So,
yeah,
anxiety versus sleep, poor sleep versus anxiety. It's a vicious
right,
cycle.
yeah. Well, for those listening, this is just a taste of what you can learn from Dr. John's book. If you'd like to get what I feel is like a very accessible understanding of the latest knowledge about sleep and improve your own, get a copy of Dr. John's new book, Nobody's Sleeping. I'll put links to the book and the Sleep Fix Academy website in the show notes for this cast. So, Dr. John, thank you so much for joining us on the People and Projects podcast.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I hope your viewers learned a few things. I mean, we can, like I said, sleep problems are the tip of the iceberg. So if you're not sleeping well, just make sure there's something else not wrong. And then there's so much help out there. So you can visit my website, read my book, or get the help you need. So because I believe if by sleeping better, the world can be a better place. So just remember, Andy, if there's a problem in our life, what do we say to each other? Let's sleep on it. Nobody says let's eat on it or exercise on it.
That's right.
Sleep is a superpower. I've discovered it throughout my own, own failures and mechanisms that I've tried. I've perfected the art of 25 years. It is there for everyone. It's not that hard. 2, 3 weeks into discipline, you will get it. So sleep well and be well, my friends.